Hello and welcome once again to the Love Spoon Workshop. Now, from the title of this video, you may notice that we're focusing upon the process that we go through to season woods. Now, this is something that Dad has got quite a lot of experience in because originally Dad was trained as a carpenter and joiner. And so this is something that he mainly deals with for us. So very good for myself to have somebody here who can deal with these things. Before we start with that though, just to go through, this isn't our sort of primary source of wood. We use a lot of recycled and reclaimed woods, and there are other videos we've got to go through how we source that. And again, with that then, you haven't got to worry about the seasoning because it's already been seasoned, you know, things like furniture, that sort of thing. So going into the process then of seasoning, what we've done, we've got some different logs, and Dad then, he's going to explain the process that we go through. So
what I would emphasise as well is that this is a really small process for us. Then this is a small venture for us. It's not a large.
We're not sort of working on a mass scale.
Logs, no.
Yeah.
These are things that you could do at home in the shed. It's a small project.
That's right. And while we're talking about, you know, seasoning wood, we're mainly specifically talking about seasoning wood for wood carving.
Yeah.
So that's our focus. Yeah. And for ourselves, it's mainly seasoning wood for love spoon carving. So if you're doing sculptures and that sort of thing, it's going to be slightly different. First things, the length. When people come in, we have people bringing in wood to us, and one thing you always sort of say, do you want to grab that one for me? One thing Dad always says to them, because quite often people will come in with quite short lengths, won't they? They'll come in with short lengths of wood, and you always say that we really need, for the love spoons, the minimum length. What would you suggest?
Minimum is 2 feet then.
2-3 feet.
Yeah.
So ideally, you want something that's sort of a metre to, you know, just
ideally a metre long.
Yeah.
If you've got the facility to have it 2 meters, fine. And of course, apart from the length, it's the diameter of the logs that you can cope with on your saw.
And so that's another thing then. What kit have you got access to? Because, for instance, at different times, we've had sort of the opportunity to have some very, very large trees, basically, some very large pieces of wood. We can't cope with them because our kit, it's small, so it can't cope with very large things.
And the majority of people would be in the same situation.
Exactly. So if you're doing the same as us, you've got more sort of smaller kit, lighter weight kit. This is the sort of video where we focus on it. This is the process we go through. So some things then, you can see, log like this one here. We'll try and do a close-up on this for you to see. That has got a big split running right the way through it.
Would you say that's about between 5 and 6 inch diameter?
Yeah, so we've got about 5 to 6 inches across the diameter. What would we say in centimetres? About, I'm not sure, you'll have to check that one, about 20 to 30 centimetres across, maybe a bit less.
No, centimetres though.
Centimetres.
I
would say about 20 centimetres across the diameter.
Yeah.
But that has got, you know, that's opened up a lot. And this is the thing, we only use, so for making our love spoons, for doing our wood carving, we only use seasoned timbers. Why, you may ask, do you always season your wood? Why do you only use seasoned timbers? Right. Basically, it's because it is more stable.
Yeah.
Green wood, very popular, green wood carving, and we're not saying there's anything wrong with it, but the reality is whenever you carve anything from green, it will move, it'll twist, it'll warp, it'll crack.
And you put it in central heating and it's going to crack.
Yeah, so it will move. So for ourselves, we want wood that is stable. When it comes to drying out, depending on the wood, generally speaking, what we would class as seasoned would be anywhere between sort of 5 and 20% moisture content, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd give it a bit more. I'd give it 9 to 10.
Yeah.
up to about 14, 15.
15.
I'd have a smaller
I'm
range.
sort of, the reason I'm giving it a bigger radius is because there's different woods, different moisture content, and I know what's going to happen. If you say, we know, people are putting in the comment section, oh, but for this wood, it's this percent, and that's what we don't get too technical, because, for instance, one way we judge whether a piece of wood is seasoned is actually on the weight. Yeah. You can tell if, like that one there, I can feel it's getting well on to being well seasoned because it's not too heavy. Yeah. That one, different story, isn't it? That's an earlier part of the process. So that is something then that we do actually check for, is the weight. If it's very, very heavy.
This one is about 8 to 9 inch diameter.
Yeah, and it hasn't long, it's not long been brought into us.
Yes. And can you see as well, what I've done, I've turned it round, it's got a piece of paper on there, because what I've done, I've written when this person brought the timber in.
Yeah.
It says July 2020.
Yeah.
From February 2020. So it was cut down in February.
Early this year.
Came into us July 2020.
So, what does that mean then for seasoning? How long do you have to wait? Well, there's different things depending on what you do. We don't use anything like kilns for drying out. We season our wood naturally, so we dry it out naturally. What sort of environment then do we use? We have different timber stores that have a very good airflow going around them.
That's important.
So the wood then, it's out of the elements. You've got it out of the sun, and you've got it out of the the wind and the rain and all the rest of it. It's undercover, but the main one is definitely when you're seasoning wood, it's getting out of the sun, isn't it? Because the sun really pulls that moisture out.
It'll dry too quickly.
Ferociously. Dries it out too quickly, and it will basically spoil it. So that's the first thing with it.
When the log comes in, we don't cut it, we leave it just under the canopy with a free flow, and we leave that for at least 12 months.
Okay? So we don't touch it for 12 months.
The time of year as well is important, because if you cut your timber, we'll say in the spring or the summertime, then the sap will have been drawn up the tree. So you're going to get a log which is full of sap.
So you've always said that really, and again, I know there'll be people who'll correct us, but you've always said that the correct time of year to cut your trees down is really December, January.
Ideally, for me,
I know
December, January. And of course, it will depend on which country you're coming from. In our country, I would say December, the leaves have gone off the tree, the sap has come down, and so December, January, you're safe.
So we brought it in and we dried it out for a year. So after a year, is it ready to go? What is the way we work it out? Well, basically, the way that you've always taught me is for every inch across the diameter, you dry it out for a 12 month.
That's right.
So going back then to the sculptors, if you're waiting to use a log like this for a sculpture, we work it out then. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. You maybe got 6 or 7 inches across the diameter.
Yeah. So you're looking for 6 years.
You're talking 6 to 8 years to fully dry that piece of wood out so it's seasoned. So does this mean that you're going to have an 8-year wait? Not necessarily. It is if you're going to use it in the entire log. But for a love spoon, we're generally using something. If I just pick up one off the bench, you're generally using something that's about that sort of thickness.
It's a bare half inch.
So less
or
than
a full half inch, sorry.
Less than an inch thick.
Yeah, less than an inch.
The process then, and I'll hand it on to Dad, you go through a process then. After a 12 month, you speed the process up for us,
well,
don't
what
you?
happens, you stash the logs away and you forget about them.
Yeah.
And then you sort of go, you're looking at, you think, oh, I want some apple, I want some whatever it is, oak, I need, so you go then, you find your logs, and maybe they may have been seasoning for 18 months, 2 years. as long as you've marked it and you know. I've also put on this one, there's a letter L in chalk, because I know what that wood is. It's lime. But sometimes when you're bringing sort of hazel and different nut timbers, you can't always remember what wood, and they're so similar, some of the grain in some of them. So I usually mark it on the end so that in case there's any doubt, and I'll know where the wood came from as well. So I'll mark it on.
So if we focus on this one here, the process then, this one you can see we've now changed the log, and you've actually sort of squared this log off.
Yeah.
So you've got more of a square. So you've cut that one then, you've cut that on a saw.
Yeah.
And you've sort of squared off the angles, and you've taken most of the bark
And you could
off.
even do that, after about 6 months you could do that.
Yeah, but you've taken most of the bark off, and
It's easier for
turned your
storing.
log. You've turned it into sort of a squared off.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So what are you then going to do with that to speed up this process for everybody?
Well, because we are making love spoons, okay, you haven't got to worry about how you're going to sew it. Whether it's quarter sewn, whether it's
Radially,
through and all sorts.
tangentially.
You don't have to be too technical. It's a love spoon at the end of the day, and
you get
it's
the
small.
best out of the log that
So
you
what we would
possibly
do,
can.
if I can bring this one in, Dave.
Yeah.
This is a piece of yew that I cut today, actually.
Yeah.
That had been seasoning for, possibly 18 months, 2 years. And as you can see, we've, if I put the log back together.
So what we've done, it's been cut into lengths less than an inch thick. So it's dried out for a 12 month. It's then been cut into strips less than an inch thick, and that then is ready to continue drying. So you can see we put the log back together. So to store this then, you've got something just down by the side there. What we do,
I've got these little, what we call slats.
we make little slats of wood.
They're about, about a bare quarter of an inch.
So if we start,
So
put in
that one goes
one
in
there.
there, and one in there.
one there. Next one's
Same again.
one there and one there.
One there.
And then two more,
Oops.
one in there
And one there.
and one in there.
Oh, and
So-
I've got another two, Dave.
There we
so
are.
that's
Would stand
for
the bottom.
the bottom underneath.
Okay. So we leave those, but it's just for you to see. So now what you've done, you've dried out your wood for a 12 month. You've then cut it to less than an inch thick. You've made little slats, and you've now got air getting right the way round the log. Because it's less than an inch thick now, it's going to dry more quickly. So what we tend to do, we dry it out for another 12 months in a timber store where you've got a good airflow, and then after that 12 months, that wood is usually ready to go.
Ready to go then.
So that is how we actually work. So as a workshop then, we're working in a 2-year cycle. So the logs that we are having brought
That's
to
the
us
log down
today, so something that may be brought into us today, like that one will go into storage, we forget about it. Leave it for a 12 months. You may, as Dad said, mark it so you know what wood it is. You may do something with it in that way, but you forget about that one there. After then 12 months, you cut it less than an inch thick. You put those little slats in between the logs, so you've got a good airflow going right the way around it, and then in another 12 months, it's ready to go. So that's the process that we use for seasoning our woods. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Let us know as well if that's useful, if that helps you out. Have you got any other sort of tips and ideas?
Well, the only thing is to, make the log.
Yeah.
If you're going to collect logs, make sure that you've got the equipment. We use a circular saw to split. the pieces. So make sure, you know, it's no good having a a circular saw with, say, a 2-inch cut, and have a 9-inch log. You know, you've got to
have the equipment to be able to deal with the wood,
to be able to split it down.
I think we will do a follow-up video showing you how then we get it from there and we get it prepared to start making love spoons. But that's another video that we look into. Hopefully then that's useful. Any other comments, any other thoughts?
The nice thing about it is that, you know, if you're trimming, you know, a tree, it depends again on your access to timber. But if I mentioned apple, for instance, if somebody's got an apple tree in the garden and
you can take a branch,
you can just have a branch. If you're pruning things,
perfect,
sizable branch.
And it's nice then because the tree has got a story in it before you start. So you've got a story, you've got a message. That one there, we've actually made that. We've done it ourselves on our trees at the back here, where we reclaim the wood. We use that wood from all sorts of fruit trees, the oak trees. It's a nice thing then because it adds to the story of your work.
It's experimenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Experimenting.
There we are. But that's just the basic approach, just to go through it. You cut your tree or your log or your branch down, you bring it under cover. Don't bring it in immediately, you know, into some sort of central heating because again, that will, you know, affect the drying out. Get it under cover somewhere with a good airflow, dry it out for 12 months. After the 12 month, you can then cut it to the thickness of the wood that you're going to use. Put it on little slats. So again, you've got a good airflow going around it. Dry it out for, if it's 1 inch thick, another 12 months, and then you're ready to go. There we are. Simple as that. Hopefully that's useful. As always, we'll be back again soon with more videos. And thank you again for watching.